All right, Ellis Cinema back. Another dish. How we doing out there? Good, great, a yand. Wonderful. As you see on your screen, your dial, however you're choosing to join us today, I know that the artists appreciate you. So here at the Ellis Cinema podcast, we are finally dipping our waters back into the music realm. I think last musical guest I had on was a couple of months ago. I think it was Flint's own John Connor. So I will tell you this, we are moving dramatically away from the rap scene. Okay. Today we are going full goth or avant goth, if you will, or if you prefer. Brief little setup before I bring my guest on today. Several months ago, I went to the Lager House in Detroit. If you guys have been there, great little venue. And I saw a Swedish band called the Dahmers. They fucking ruled. However, for me, the Dahmers performance was kind of overshadowed by the opening act. So the opening act comes on, takes the stage. It is a man with a suitcase with a bass drum pedal and cymbals attached to said suitcase. Soon after, this man sets up a theremin, and I'm not going to get into the history of the theremin for you, so you're going to have to Google that on your own. However, by the end of the first song, gang, I was absolutely blown away by the sound I heard, the vibe that ensued, the stage presence that was just as weird as it was funny, as it was endearing. That was 3 months ago. And I've actually seen this act two additional times since then. And if you know me, you know, I don't, unless I really like something, I tend to not hit it hard. But boy, I have been banging their records. Whenever I get a chance to see them, I do. And I guess you could say I was very much drawn to the seance, the collective stories and experience of death, dying, the want of immortality, the fear of living forever. I am drawn towards the sounds of loneliness, nostalgia, the pain of loss, and the elation of finding love, and the ever present fear of it being stolen. I mean, the scars of time are within my eyes, gang, within my eyes, and the divining tolls that have been left on my flesh and mind are ever present, gang. Members of the audience joining the show for the first time. Boy, we have been trying to get this together for a while, and now we can finally make it happen. Joining the show for the first time, singer, songwriter of thePicassos, the Lonesome Skeleton Band, and now the Sad Hour, Spooky Charles Urban. Sir, we finally got you on this show after just reschedule after reschedule. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you, man?
Very good. Perseverance prevails.
Yeah, so
Indeed.
I don't mean to like pull a whole Christopher Nolan tenant on you right off the jump, but if we could kind of start from the end, maybe work our way towards the middle or the beginning. The last
Sure.
show that I saw you at was at the Nocturnal Monroe, which, by the way, gang, if you have not been to this coffee shop in Monroe, Nocturnal Monroe, it is my favorite coffee shop ever. It's almost like they went inside my head and they were like, what would Sean want for the interior design of his house? And they made a fucking coffee shop out of it. That is Nocturnal Monroe. However, you made some pretty downer news when I saw you there, my friend. Correct me if I'm wrong, the Picassos, which is how I first learned of you, indefinite hiatus. What is going on, sir?
Yes, indeed. So we are in fact going on indefinite hiatus, and that is not for lack of trying. Loyal with the band members. not so much socially, but their personal lives are kind of taking precedence as it does. So life has kind of found its new way, and it just makes a lot of
Okay.
sense to kind of put it on the shelf and let it kind of live and sit for as long as it needs to for us to kind of get ourselves back in order. Um,
So this is not
Positive, I
goodbye.
suppose, is that
This is
no,
not
I wouldn't
goodbye.
call it goodbye.
Okay.
I wouldn't say goodbye forever. I think I mentioned even in the much like the paranormal that inspires the beings, we are um, potential to rise again from the grave. So I like to make it as somber as I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea that we're just like, oh, we're just going to take a couple of months off. It could very well be goodbye. Who knows? Nothing is promised, right? As your shirt says, memento mori. So the idea of it is putting it on the shelf, putting it on ice, letting it sit, and that the benefit is that it kind of frees me up to kind of do some more ventures that I've kind of had in my bag for a minute that I've been trying to kind of find a place and time. Seems like now is the time.
Now is one of those ventures the Lonesome Skeleton Band? Will we be starting to see dates pop up for that?
I'm I'm taking them as they come. Really, just whatever I had already pre-booked for Picasso's throughout the rest of the year. If it seems like an event that's going to fit like a solo act or an acoustic or very last minute stuff, I can always jump on, see company myself and make it much like you saw at Lager House. That was an event that the rest of the band couldn't make it. So I had to, work with what I got. So that is usually my MO.
It's kind of wild for me to think about that. I first uh, became aware of you at the Lager House under the banner of the Picassos. And in typical Sean fashion, I have actually never seen the Picassos perform. I have only seen you perform, which is not something that I don't think has ever happened in my experience.
Which is a huge compliment, honestly. You've made the trek, you've made the attempt, you've seen it. You're saying it 3 times. That's a pretty grand record right there. These days with how life is, but thankfully you do have 2 more opportunities to see the full band in its full regalia for this coming week. I don't know when this post, but um, Sunday we're at the sanctuary. And then we're only doing a very quick 25-minute set, but it's a very important date because it's Lake Effect, a friend of ours band, is doing a reunion set. So we are very excited to be part of that. And then finally, the final farewell seance is at the Ghost Light on August 11th, as it is. And that is also a Sunday. So
I
go figure.
believe I'm going to be
So
able to make the Ghost Light, so I'm looking forward to that. I don't know.
that's a good one because we get to play for as long as we like. So,
Awesome, because I don't know how I got roped into a fucking monster truck show this Sunday with my nephews.
oh,
All I can tell you is not my
yeah,
thing, but I am kind of a family guy, so I guess I have to go. But when I found out
it's
that,
an experience.
yeah, but you know what, man, I've seen all I need to see. I don't need to go see that live. I'm good. I'm good. I'd rather go
Someday,
see some.
someday, someday.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we were gonna kind of start from the end.
Mhm.
So now all you guys know, you may not be seeing the Picassos anytime soon unless you make those 2 dates. So I warned you in advance that we were going to do generic softball questions. I like my audience to get to know the person just as much as I'm very hesitant to say content because I feel that really devalues the art and but I really want people to become aware of the band just as much as the person. So, as someone who writes film scripts as a fucking hobby, I I'm always observing people. Even when I'm not trying to observe people, I'm always observing and watching, and I'm fascinated by people's story, where they came from, how they got there. If you don't mind answering a puke-worthy, nauseatingly boring question, what tell me a little bit about your upbringing. When did Spooky Charles? Well, we'll get to when Spooky Charles became Spooky Charles, but what explain the upbringing to me. Did you come by this particular genre of music very honestly? I'm interested in the story, sir. Oh no, did you freeze?
Well, I thank you. Yes, I guess I did. I mean, I can kind of see that the early inklings of what would inform my music taste by way of my parents running a cassette through their newly wired sound system at the age of I can imagine probably no earlier than 3 or 4, blasting the Phantom of the Opera music, and it terrified me as a small child. The organ stings of that first track, just and just imagining like that going through the dark house, because we turned the light. This must have been around Halloween. But that alone informed just kind of an early appreciation for that theater, I suppose. All throughout my, growing up, I was a visual artist. I drew a lot. Did creative endeavors, sculpted, and kind of got into a lot of model making as a kid.
So now
All
wait
the
a minute.
while
Is this you?
finding,
Is
yeah.
this so the year you did this?
Well, I mean, that's a tarot card. It is a tarot card art for sure, but I do the visual, inception of everything that we do.
Okay. Oh yeah,
So I mean,
makes
I
sense.
put it together. I can't take credit for the actual art. It's a writer way tarot get set, but there are others that I actually have that with art designs, um, which is fun enough. I could tell you that another, I would say informative experience copy of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein as a kid for a birthday and running the tape ragged. It was like the perfect, I think, introduction. You got it right there? Kind of frozen a little bit. Yeah, that's my guys. I mean, what an amazing like introduction to them. Because like, of course, I knew of the Dracula and the Monster, but like, I don't think I had watched the films at that point, but I knew of them enough, and they were like my Halloween icons, of course. And that watching that film for the first time, getting the first introduction to those iterations, and probably the most kid friendly way you can, right, with the Costello and Abbott, and you know, informative to say the least. And the traditional watch that every year if I can help it.
Man, I just
Um,
sometimes
but beyond that, like
if you
yeah,
observe people long like if you observe people long enough, like I knew you were gonna be a good egg, man. I just knew like the fact that you mentioned Abbott and Costello on this fucking pod. I cannot tell you how
yeah.
fast my heart is beating now because I'm so fucking elated, man. I people
Mhm.
don't know. People they just don't know anymore. Like stuff like that. They don't know and they don't care. And I just want to tell you, man, you're a good fucking egg. I didn't mean to interrupt there, but the fact that you brought up Abbott and Costello, man, that makes me so fucking happy.
I mean, it's so informative to me in the strangest way that like I'll go back and I'll watch those movies and obviously the whole litany of the films that they do. I'm just fascinated by that in general, and I guess that at an early age instilled the interest of film, no less. But of course, horror movies, the black and white, the Universal films, like that's my deal. That's my jam. Like that's really comfort, I would say. Um, and from there, just kind of picking up a video store on my way out of work, out of high school jobs, and watching it into the wee hours of the morning and fun, just like building my reference and film repertoire. And that's always just eked its way into my creative output, I'd say. I don't know where I've gotten off track here, but I was in theater in high school, so that
Yeah.
probably explains plenty.
So you do have a theater background. I was wondering
Mhm.
because just the way that you operate on stage. Now, I don't know if a lot of this is just you in real life or you kind of made a conscientious decision like to you are so effortlessly deadpan and yet the timing is perfect and the first time I saw you I was like I was trying to process it and figure it out but then by the third time I saw you I was like oh he's just really fucking good at doing this in between songs
Well,
which makes people like I think it almost puts people at ease because I know like at least with my friends the first time like they just saw the optics of it all they hadn't heard your sound yet they were just kind of like oh this is interesting what's this going to be like and I don't think that they anticipated kind of how we were going to be in between songs which afterwards they went on to there just like that was fucking great the next time he performs make sure that we're there and I was like, well, I think he's going to become a resident of Nocturnal sooner than later here.
yeah, yeah. Thankfully, they've been so generous. They put me up pretty much every month since they've opened. Um, so that's become my safe haven. At least once a month there, and then the Raven Coffee House, a whole over neck of the woods. I go between the two, and I just get to do 2 hour solo sets monthly now, which is nice to have a place where I can feel like I belong in the wallpaper, um, which is great. Um, but I guess yeah, you've picked that up. Yep. Theater was a big thing for me. Um, that I get to kind of experiment and kind of got an idea of like I wouldn't say comedic timing, but I do. I guess between the songs, I have to maintain, that calm, cool collectedness because I want to channel all of my energy into the performance of the music itself. So I guess my default is just very, um, and plus, I'm dealing with such drab topics that, it will catch people off guard if I do. I couldn't possibly um, take it so deadly serious in the moment. Um, I'll make no mistake, I like to make sure that the art is in fact taken seriously, but I feel like it's a little more palatable when we're talking about the topics that I generally write about, which is death and dying. And as you said in the intro, like so many different uh, mutations of that. Um,
Yeah, I apologize for the
yeah,
intro. I just stole everything that I assumed that you wrote.
I thought you wrote it.
No, no, this is all stuff that I just saw between just stuff that I saw on Spotify and the internet, and I was like, well, I can't say it better than that, so I might as well just I might as well just
It's
pull.
out there for a reason.
Um, so when people ask me like, or who you going to see, like, what type of music is it? And I'm very hesitant to say one way or another what it is because to me, it sounds like everything and nothing that I've heard before. I it's hard. I think avant goth is the best way to put it. But I guess how would you describe it to someone that has never heard your sound before?
I mean, I know that it is hard. It's very difficult for me to pinpoint it. And I've tried very hard over the years to kind of give different. We've gone from everything from like spooky grunge to cemetery punk, and I'm always like putting something together that makes sense. And then we finally landed on the term avant-goth, Midwestern Gothic, in fact. Though I think I take a lot from like folk music, kind of an Americana sensibility by and large. And then I'm really inspired a lot in especially in Picasso's world of like the sort of blues singers, but also jazz and like soul and all of that sort of ragtime influence that happened. Because I'm really trying to use these genres as like my palette, my color palette, so to speak, as far as the subject matter of the song is like the standout that you may be aware of, like the X-ray specs or the Weird Sisters. Like that's clearly like my attempt at like a Benny Goodman like vibe, like that jazz club, that kind of uh bass lines, thundering drums, and like making that be what gets you into it. And then the topics that we're talking about can kind of be retrofitted into that framework for me,
Okay, so I mean, we heard some what
I
I would
guess.
assume to
Yeah.
be inspirations. Like, can you walk me from the moment that you got inspired by, whatever type of music, but one that you might argue was the catalyst into you going, fuck, you know what? I want to do this whole music thing, and I'm gonna do it. I like when I say that I don't know if outside of Spooky Charles, if that sound exists, I really mean that. So I feel like you stumbled onto something, at least to me, that's fucking great. But like, were there any inspirations where you heard that and you went, you know what? I'm gonna go it alone with this. I'm going to follow this whole music thing.
I mean, to me, I feel like I sound like every band I've ever heard in the best and worst ways. Um,
Hey,
but
do you
I
mind?
mean,
Do you mind? Can I
yeah.
stop you for a second? I feel that something just doesn't feel totally right to me. Like, I don't know. I feel kind
Mhm.
of uncomfortable right now. I don't. Do you mind if I just kind of readjust for a second? Is that be all
Okay.
right with you? Is that
Sure.
all right? All right,
Sure.
cool.
Of course.
I don't know, man. It's something just, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. I'm getting hot in this shit. Let's see here. All right. All right. How about that? That feels
Oh, look at you.
a little bit better there. But you know what?
Oh, look at you.
I'm not done yet. Let's put these on. And you know
Ah,
what, dude? Let's get a candle going, bro. Let's get the seance going. Let's get the seance. Cheers to your candle, sir.
of course.
Cheers to the
Can't talk
candle.
about it without it.
All right, so now I feel bad. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just there was
No, you home team pride. Look at you. Excellent.
I need to collect the whole
I am
set.
to say flattered is an understatement.
So what were we talking about? Were we talking about inspirations? Yeah, I think it was inspirations, and when you went, you know what? I'm following this music thing.
Hmm. Um, I mean, all throughout high school, I was learning about new bands and filling up my iPod with everything that I could download from the internet, and discovering new stuff every day, pretty much. Borrowing CDs, taken from the library, burning it onto my home computers and everything. Um, but bands that really kind of, I guess, cracked the ice for me would have been like Smashing Pumpkins or AFI. Getting into Depeche Mode at a certain age was like very influential, of course, and realizing that there is so much you can dig into this music. But I would say, weirdly enough, I was already kind of in this like pseudo folk world from bands like the Decemberists or even like some early White Stripes stuff that I'm like, this makes sense. I can kind of take this and run with it. And then the affirmation of discovering the full discography of like Tom Waits really
Who doesn't love
blew my
Tom
brain.
Waits?
It So many people don't, and I think it's wrong. And it's deeply upsetting that every time like my partner cannot stand him, not a fan. And I'm like, I'm blown away because it's such an excellent like exercise of taking one guy and stretching out every possible permutation of what he's capable of doing, and he hit it one way or another, from rock to blues to jazz to every sort of offshot. He just endlessly inspiring. and in the same vein, David Bowie, no less, would be a huge talking point for me.
That was the
Um,
one thing that so when I
yeah,
first saw you, my chick was not there. She was on vacation, but she was like, "So who did you see and who are you raving about?" And I was like, it's this guy. They go by the Picassos. I gotta be honest, there's Bowie in there. There's Bowie in there that I'm feeling. So that's how I
wow.
sold that's how I sold it to her.
I mean, that's just amazing to hear because I've never heard anyone take that away from what anything that I've done. So that's like amazingly, that even in the, the aching parts of it, that you can still kind of like smell a little bit of it, um, which is something that I really hope to, move into more in the coming time.
All right, so we got some, and I know, like I said, we are going to start from the end and kind of work towards the middle. So you have this upbringing, you have these inspirations. How would talk me through the inception of the Picassos?
Well, um, out of high school, I had a band, a few different projects that existed at some point that we launched at a lunch table one day. Um, I guess the escalating incident would have been having a pack. I played drums. I started on playing drums. I was in marching band and such. So I got a pretty good feel for just playing a full drum kit, and that was kind of my main thing that I would take time to do. Eventually, getting a guitar and kind of goofing around with it. Um, but the first time that I ever tried to sing, and again, this is ancient history, but I was at a band practice, or the first band practice for my high school band that we were going to assemble, and I was going to play drums, and the singer didn't show up. So, being the theater kid that I was at the time, I was relegated to doing double duty of singing and playing drums. So that was something that just kind of kept on happening. um, Years go by. I try to start a new project with new people. I have ideas for names, and it just never kind of falls together until I finally come up with the idea. I'm like, oh, this will be a new band. I moved out to where I live now, and assumed that I will start a new project. It will be called Picasos because we could be like an indie band. We could do anything with that name. Who knows what? And for the longest time, I tried to assemble that band and to no real avail for the most part. So what I ended up doing was, well, I can still book myself under this and start getting a feel for it. Looking at like subway street performer videos, and you find one on YouTube in like New York or something, and they have like they'll sit on a little suitcase and have like a little snare drum and stuff, and like playing it like a kit, like a drum kit. But I'm like, oh, okay. And then realizing that there's such contraptions, it's like Latin percussion, foot percussion, that you can do the tambourine as well. So I'm like, if I just have a bass beat and tambourine, that's my percussion today. And I went with that for a while, and that became my skeleton setup for as long as it was. And I'm still fine tuning that as it is. For as long as I have. The I guess the first time that the Picassos ever became a full band was just a matter of knowing the right people and them coming together and meeting me where I was, seeing me do what I did, and then getting together with Torin, and then who was the drummer at the time, and then Dan was a bass player who I had actually known from community theater. And then we were like a solid three-piece for, I would say, from 2018 on to 2020-ish or 2019-ish, when we finally got, obviously COVID happened. We couldn't do anything for that time until we kind of convened and released. Um, Exhumed was the compilation that we put out in 21 with our then keyboardist, or was it 22? Or then keyboardist Joe, who really kind of solidified us as a solid piece. And with those pieces together, you know, we were a pretty solid unit. Um, and then, you know, tragedy strikes when we had released the full length record, you know, as Divination Scars, the following year, and Torin, the drummer, was unable to perform and had an injury in his arms, so preventing him from playing drums or really doing anything music related for a good, it's been about a year, so over a year now. We've thankfully been able to enlist help of other musicians and friends who have gotten together with us. We have um, Justin's our drummer right now. We got a new guitar player. We sometimes work with a violinist. So we've had to very much ready make a new band almost all together for these past couple months and over a year now. Um, so if that all follows, that's the most
So
recent agony.
what's tell me about your first gig, the first gig that you guys got.
Um, as Picassos is like the full band,
Yeah, yeah.
because that was I couldn't tell you what the first one was because it kind of escalated a little bit here and there. Like it was just me, and then it was just Torin and I, and then it was Torin, Dan, and I. And I could say that one of the first that we got as that three piece, circa I assume 19, I think 2019, maybe late 2018, um, was we played the Sanctuary, much like we're playing next Sunday, but we opened for Amigo the Devil and Harley Poe. So that was like a big deal for us because Harley Poe was a big influence on my high school psyche, as it was. Does the most notable I'd say would be his iteration of the Hearse song from the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books, and that definitely is the standout, I'd say. Um, so we just loved that. That was an amazing experience because it was pretty close to selling out, which was a huge accomplishment for something that we had very little to do with it, but still great. Very big gold star for us in that early stage of the project.
I I derail often, and sometimes my brain locks onto things, and I can't. As much as I would like to move on, I can't. Tell me your favorite scary story from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Offhand,
You don't have to give me the
I
title.
really like I really like the Slithery D,
Okay.
which is a weird one.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're all great, but like some that just kind of stick in my head, especially with the illustrations of the Alvin Schultz and Stephen Gamel's work. Like this is also like I would also probably peg as a weird early influence into that horror and dark, arena at an early age. Because I'd remember kids we checking it out about the middle school or elementary school libraries, and then being, almost too scary. I don't want to take those books home. No, so scary. And it's just the artwork being so extreme for the time, um, and just falling in love with that style. And ever since, like collecting anytime I can find an old copy or something, and just try to envelop that. But yeah, the Slithery D's one that I think about a lot. Meet Tai Doti Walker, um, and then the Wendigo one,
Yeah.
because it's so funny. But it's actually absurd if I think about it too long because I'm like, I could probably recite most of those. Um, we won't do that today.
Dude,
But
these kids
yeah,
these days are so lame. They don't even they like that's growing up with the cool stuff. Now everything is just like, could you imagine releasing that new today? You know what I'm saying? Like people would lose their minds.
well, it's ugly now because you see that they do these rebrands of those books, and they have existed if you've ever looked them up. They have released with all new artwork, same stories, same Alvin Schultz credit, a new artist for every book, every story. And it's new, and I appreciate that somebody took the time, but I feel like it's almost like, let me just do a new Mona Lisa. Let me just see what that's like. What's the point of that? Who is that benefiting? Because you've just taken what is, I would say, probably the most notable about the books. We love the stories, but Alvin didn't write them. He reformatted them for those releases. Of these are like classic American folk tales. Nobody necessarily knows the original authors, so to speak, and maybe I'm wrong, but you know, there's a there is a something very disturbing about not appreciating a disturbing image.
Yeah, I just wish we were still weird. Like I grew up at a time with Labyrinth and Dark Crystal and all that and
Mm-hmm.
I was also watching Abbott and Costello like yourself and stuff. So I had a very odd upbringing, at least cinematically. I had a odd upbringing. I can't remember. I don't know if I would call this story my favorite story of all of them, but I can tell you the one that fucked me up the most when I was a kid, and that was when the spiders busted out of that lady's face. that,
Yeah.
that fucked me up
Yep.
big time.
And have you seen the movie?
Yes, I have. It's
Yeah.
fine. It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. It's apart from trying to do some pretty honest recreations of the character designs, which I think is an impossible task, but it's a version of it. I'd like to see it as maybe a series. Like, why don't you just do Goosebumps with it? Like, let's see little half-hour specials of each story. But
And let's
cinema,
slap
all
it
that good.
on HBO so we can go HBO or FX so we can go hard with it.
My opinion is that I want it just as good as Goosebumps, and I think you can get some really horrificness and make it scholastic appreciative, like like uh, able for those kids to watch it because how else are they going to pass them along?
So we've talked a little bit about
That's it.
you. We've talked a little bit about the band, and in textbook Sean fashion, I always get selfish towards the end of an interview, and hopefully you haven't had too rotten of a time because I have. If should we do a second and third show? Oh, I want to go to do a deep dive with some lyrics on some of your songs with you. The Weird Sisters, Serious Business, Children
Sure.
Night. I could go on and on and on. But we're not going to do that right now. Right now, I got selfish questions for you. So you know that this is a movie podcast. I am of absolute fucking
Mhm.
nut when it comes to movies. But before we get to some movies that you like, I got to know five musical artists or five albums. Doesn't need to be in order, doesn't need to be a top five, nothing like that. That you're just going to have on repeat. The artist or the album that you're going to have on repeat, and they can't take the record away from you.
Oh yeah. I could just nail the whole list with Tom Waits records. Um, but if I choose one from him, Rain Dogs, so good. My first track that I really listened to from Waits because I knew some stuff prior, um, Cemetery Polka. I mean, obviously, it's such a weird, abstract song, but it speaks volumes for some reason. Um, Other than that, David Bowie's Low for
Okay.
sure. Like I said, Depeche Mode's Violator, of course. Um, Kind of a newer artist, but Wolf Alice is one that I really jive with these days.
What
Blue
was the
Weekend.
What's the name?
Wolf Alice. I think they're a UK act.
Yep.
But I think it's their second or third record, Blue Weekend, is just a magnificent piece. And one that I've listened to, what was that for? I could always say Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. I mean, that's kind of a cheat because you get two full records. But let's say something weird.
Yeah, really
What's the
weird. Let's
weirdest thing?
let's let's go off
Um,
path on this one.
Probably something off kilter. The soundtrack to It Follows, which is just
Interesting. Interesting. All
I,
right.
yeah, yeah. Because I can just listen to that because it's just this weird ethereal synth, like just driving shit. And I love to put it on in the car and just like let me imagine that I get to live in that for a minute.
I listened to
Or anything David Lynch does.
Oh yeah, yeah. Lynch is God. I listen to three genres. And this is gonna you're gonna be like, how the fuck did I end
Mm,
up on this podcast? I listen to, I guess what you would call gangster rap. I guess if you would call it that. I don't know. The hards.
okay.
I listen to folk. And I listen to movie soundtracks. That's literally, I mean, I listen to everything, but if we're talking like just cause I grew up in a music household, my dad was in a band, so I think you automatically just have that thing where you're trying to find new artists. It doesn't matter if it's pop or it's blah blah blah, blah, blah whatever. But
Hmm.
yeah, rap, folk, and movie soundtracks is basically what's in my car at all times. And I think a lot the big thing
Absolutely.
with rap that people don't understand because they'll be like, "Aren't you a little older? Like, aren't you a little too old to be listening to rap?" And it's like, first of all, I just poo-poo that question. Like, I don't think music has an age limit, but folk and rap, I think, tell the best stories. I really do. And I think that that's just what I'm drawn to. Now, like folky, we get, maybe a little fantastical here and there. And then you have something very raw and real with rap or whatever. And then, like, if I blow off steam, I'll throw on Hans
Yeah.
Zimmer and just, cruise. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah. I'm a big obviously folk can I've never really been into the rap stuff so much. But I have a big appreciation for a lot of artists, and I'm always interested to get into new stuff, of
yeah,
course.
I saw funny story. I saw Joyner Lucas on a Saturday and then I saw you on Sunday. So, people would be just like,
That's a mix, a good mix.
I like to make sure that the spectrum is vast, my friend. All right, so now the one
Yeah.
that I've been waiting for, and I know like so I have a lot of audience members that are aspiring musicians, aspiring filmmakers, and typically when it's the first time you're on this show, I like to close the show with just my selfish question, which is you can only have five. They don't have to be the best movies you've ever seen. They can be your favorite, but let's just say this deserted island has a Blu-ray player, a TV, and you only get five that you get to have on repeat. Doesn't need to be any order. What would those be?
Hmm. Well, I think you can probably guess Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein
Yeah.
because you get all the monsters, all the benefit. Um, uh, Probably Alien, which is endlessly fun. Um, Silence of the Lambs, because I have to. Um, I know I've got probably the first Spider-Man.
Oh, okay.
It's just because I'm also under all of this. I'm also just a big comic nerd, so that's also my. It's probably the Elephant Man. Hopkins gets two, so I really love the Elephant Man also.
It's funny you
So,
bring up comics. My first of all good choices, by the way. Like it, I'm not surprised by a couple, but Elephant Man, like so you're looking to be just depressed as fuck on this deserted island. That's what I'm hearing.
oh, but it's so good, but it's so excellent. It's just it's a beautifully depressing picture. Um, but that's kind of what's so compelling, you know.
Sob at that ending every fucking time. Speaking of comics, though, my brother
Mm.
for my birthday, I just picked up The Last Ronin, so I guess I'm going to be reading that
Right.
now. And I know that this is rumored that they're maybe going to be making a live action film out of it. I'll believe it when I see it, but I come from the generation of like the real Ninja Turtles, not the CG ones that we have come to know over the last 15, 20 years. So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
hopefully, if I had my now talk about completely derailing. If I had my pick, let's get Robert Rodriguez to do The Last Ronin. One, because he's a huge fucking fan, and two, it's Robert Rodriguez, and I'm down for it. Just random thought.
I could see that happening. Give it a couple of years. I think they're already thinking about it because of just how much like attention that story has gotten, which is kind of unprecedented for comics these days. So big deal.
I'm about halfway into it, and it's already bumming me the fuck out. But we are not going to
Yeah.
close this show on the Ninja
It's
fucking Turtles.
yeah, fair enough.
Um, First of all, Charles, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on. I hope that you will come on again in the future. That would be, I mean, I knew that this was going to be effortless and I knew that we were going to run long. And for the first time, I never like to run long. However, I do need to make you feel uncomfortable for a moment, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yep.
First and foremost, you're a hell of a musician, man. Straight up. I have only seen you 3 times, and I am not just if you talk about just the music alone, I'm a fan for life. If you talk about your stage presence, I'm a fan for life. And I just want to thank you for taking the time that you did all 3 times. After you were done performing, you were very gracious with pictures with me and my friends. And that's just, I have been to so
Yep.
many shows, and predominantly it's not like that, man. Even for, smaller acts or, whatever, I haven't had that type of, it's not that it never happened, but for you to make it feel as welcoming as it is, like I just think it's kind of a rarity these days. So I wanted to thank you for that. Also, Divination Scars. Kid you not, sir. One of my favorite records of recent memory. I'm not saying this just because you're on the show. If you listen to any of my podcasts before this, I don't fuck around. I life's too short to fuck around. And when I say it is the strongest record that I have listened to top to bottom in I don't even know how many years, I mean it. If you held a gun to my head right now and said, "Give me the last album where you didn't skip a track," I would struggle. But when it comes to Divination Scars, every fucking track is good. I don't skip any of it, dude. And like it to me, like why that means so much to me, it hasn't happened in I don't even know how long, sir. I don't remember the last album I played where I was like, that's good, that's good, that's good. I don't remember. So I just in the world we live in, it's a huge deal to me because between movies and music, I feel like it there's so much stuff and it's kind of hard to find these diamonds in the rough, if you will. And for me, after hearing you guys, hearing you specifically, I'm actually kind of amazed to even be talking to you, to be honest with you. Like I feel like you should be that like launched into the stratosphere, my friend. Like I'm not kidding you. Like I said, I grew up in a music household. My dad's been in a band my entire fucking life. I'm not going to say I know the goods when I see the goods, but sir, I know the fucking goods when I see the goods. And what I have seen every single fucking time out of you, it actually annoys me that you're on this podcast with me right now because you're so much better than this podcast. so, um, I know you probably that makes you uncomfortable, but you have a fan for life, but I want to say I'm not going to be a fan that's sitting outside your bedroom window. Not that type of fan. I'll just follow you anywhere.
And I'll take that. That is absurdly kind of you to say. Um, I mean, I shudder to think of a time where I won't be able to do that sort of, you know, I want it to be a welcoming experience, and you're proof positive that that's something that's capable. So I appreciate the hell out of it and the support, the shout outs, and just having me on here, like spreading the word. That's all it really takes, especially these days. So I'm honored that you have taken the time and have dwelled so deeply into the world that I've kind of crafted with my friends, and hopefully, we don't disappoint in the future. So I appreciate beyond words.
Well, until we meet again, sir, or until Wicker Caskets call our name, I will be seeing you soon, hopefully, sir, and hopefully we can run this back again. Thank you so much again for coming on. Seriously.
Excellent. Of course, anytime. Let me know.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
Yep. Take care.
Charles Urban, ladies and gentlemen. Can you believe, like, when I say, like, and I hope you know, gang, that I'm not kidding you when I say his album, start to finish, I do not stop it. Like it. Go listen to it right now. Just search the Picassos, all one word, THE capital P, the Picassos, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to your music, you can find them. Spin Divination Scars for me. Tell me what you think. Seriously. Top to bottom, one of my favorite albums in years, which is kind of wild to me because I've almost kind of resigned to the idea that I'm only going to like certain songs off of albums these days just based on how the music is released these days. Like Joyner Lucas, who I brought up talking with Charles, a half hour ago or whatever. I heard 8 of his songs before his 13 track album or whatever it was released many, many months later. And like all I can say is it's different. It's different. And when you stumble upon these guys, push it as far as it can go. Both of their full albums are good. The EPs that they have on Spotify, all good, all super strong. And it's just I think why I got so geeked. I mean, I'm sure you guys could probably tell I was a nervous fucking wreck throughout this entire interview because I mean it when I say it is baffling to me, gang, that this man was on our show. He's that fucking talented. So make sure that you reach out to, you start following him on all the socials. I believe on IG it's Spooky Charles, the Picassos, and the Sad Hours Band. All 3 of those you can follow him. Don't go bug him though. I'll be annoyed with you. And same with X, you can find him there. And just, if nothing else, if you like what you're hearing, shit, put it in your pocket and let that motherfucker just repeat. You know what I'm saying? So they can get those plays and we can get them out there because everything that you heard me tell him towards the end there, 100% true. I feel out of my league talking to this gentleman. He's that fucking talented. So Spooky Charles Urban, ladies and gentlemen, as advertised. I knew it was going to be a fucking effortless podcast. I just like you come across people in life and like I don't know how I ended up doing this fucking show, but ended up doing the show and I went, not only would I like that guy in real life, but I think he would make a killer fucking guest and he knocked it out of the fucking park. So, uh please go follow him. Go bother. Well, don't go bother him. Anyway, Ellis Cinema, we gone. Spooky Charles, the Picassos, Sad Hours Band. Spin those tracks, gang. Spin those tracks. Ellis Cinema, we gone.